Top of the morning, my Talishars. We've got a commoner Levia deck tech for you today. And boy, do I love this format. So props to LSS for actually making this a real thing because Levia and CC and Blitz, I mean, we've explored her options. We're getting a little stale while we wait for Uprising. Fingers crossed it's got brute stuff in it. But for now, at least we were given the chance to explore a new format in commoner, and it is really packed with some cool stuff. So right off the bat, you can see this is a Talishar Levia list, and we're going to jump into why that is. And that's really because in Commoner, you are limited to only commons in the main deck, but you can have up to 2 rares in the equipment slots. And with Levia, there are some, like you would think, kind of automatic options for your rare slots. Oh, Mandible Claws, how awesome would that be? I can still run that in my Commoner list. Well, actually, you gotta pause a second and realize you're losing Blood Rush Bellows, which is the main enabler for Mandible Claws. You're losing Pulping, Breakneck Battery, some other options that might give you access to the Go Again on Mandible Claws. So then you think, okay, well, never mind. I won't take the Claws. So maybe I'll take Romping Club instead. And Romping Club, super solid weapon. I love using it in Club Levia. It's been great in the hybrid lists as well. But once again, you're losing out on a lot of the discard Go Again effects, which would let you get bonus off the +1. So you just end up running a 2-cost 4-attack weapon. That's cool. That's awesome. But then you kind of look at the other option in that slot in Talishar. And Talishar has some minor synergies over Club if you're not actually going to be getting that +1 effect or buffing weapon damage at all, because you don't have like Rolling Thunder, you don't have Blood Rush, you have Primeval Bellow. We're not running that one though. So then you look at Talishar, and Talishar is another 2-cost for 4 attack, but there's 2 minor synergies in this weapon that are really interesting. Number 1 is that it actually can go to the graveyard, which, I mean, you don't normally see weapons sleeved up in the same sleeves as the deck, but, you know, for Levia, right, graveyard always matters. So that can be a minor thing. It can go to graveyard, but the other thing is that it is a sword, and swords can get hit with Razor Reflex, which is actually an all-star in this commoner Levia list. So hopefully that pitch worked on y'all, and you do see the value in Talishar already. We're going to jump into the rest of the deck here, but right off the bat, I want to say it's awesome now. We have Claws Levia, we've got Club Levia, and now we have Talishar Levia. Hexcore Levia, still out there. Ravenous Meatex, still out there, but we're adding another weapon to the viable builds list, which is pretty cool. So let's check out the equipment. So now for the rest of the equipment setup, it's actually not that hard to fill those 11 slots in your inventory slot, I believe they call it now, which is interesting because I would have thought that in Commoner you're kind of like concerned with, well, what do I put in those 11 slots? Well, I think I've actually figured it out to a degree where I'm pretty happy with it. If it's right at 11, there's a little bit of flex room, of course, with whatever you want to do. But we're going to go through the top here, and that is the headpiece. I'm taking Ebonfold, Hope Merchant's Hood, and Ironrot Helm, and they all serve pretty different purposes. Number 1, Ebonfold is in here if you're against Wizard, I guess. I haven't seen a Wizard in Commoner yet, and in fact, I haven't really played that much Commoner entirely. This build is more just to put out there so y'all can start to get some ideas for yourself and start popping off with Levia. But Ebonfold I'm taking for the Spell Void 2, and the immediate graveyard fill versus Kano, really not there for that instant effect. That instant effect, if you see my videos, you know I prefer it in Hope Merchant's Hood, the ability to save you from not having a way to turn off Blood Debt, but actually in Commoner, being able to save you from an all-red hand is so critical, I find, in this format, because all the decks tend to be a bit clunkier, a bit slower to enact the game plans they want, but Hope Merchant's Hood, just as that free mulligan, is so strong in making sure you can keep up tempo and not get stuck with an all-red or no way to turn off Blood Debt, right? Then we also have Ironrot Helm. And this is actually here in case you are in a matchup where blocking 5 really matters. So namely, as I've found so far, that's basically Ranger. Ranger, you know, has these arrow effects that can come in for 5. If they buff it taller, so be it. But you want to really use your equipment to try to pivot on them because they don't have the ability to do that with their own equipment very well. So that's why Ironrot Helm is in here. It's really just for that. Then we've got the arm pieces here, and the Spellfray Gloves goes along with Ebon just for Wizard, and it's your second rare slot since you're allowed to take the 2 rares, right? Goliath Gauntlet is the next piece, and it's what I always try to take because +2 damage is super, super strong. The fact that it goes instantly to graveyard as well lets you maintain a lot of control over where your graveyard's at and being able to push through with attacks. Iron Rot Gauntlet is for the same reason as Iron Rot Helm. It's for when you need to block 5. These two in combination are going to let you do that with a 3 cost, and then you can do it again with the equipment down here that we'll get to in a second. Then Nullrune Gloves is really just for Viscerai. I haven't seen a Viscerai yet, but I assume they're still on the RuneChamp plan, so Nullrune Gloves is in there because you might as well have a Nullrune Barrier piece, since you can't go as aggressive as you want anyway. You might as well protect yourself from the Rune Chants. Then for the chest pieces here, we've got Barkbone Strapping and Heart and Cross Strap. And I try to take Heart and Cross Strap whenever I can. Once again, the immediate graveyard fill is really strong, plus the ability to combo it with Goliath Gauntlet on the same attack, something Reinhar's been doing for ages, is just really, really good. So I try to take this one. But once again, if you need that extra block, Barkbone is really strong here because it can combo with the Hooves of the Shadow Beast. And you can notice this is the only leg piece we take because Hooves is an all-star in this format. It's one of the reasons I think Levia actually has great legs in this format is strictly because of this card. It is so much value. The one block is fantastic. The ability to fill graveyard with it and just push over the top on these crazy turns is really, really strong. So you can see that if you want the 4 block, you can go the Barkbone, the Hooves, the double Iron Rot. If you want versus Wizard, you can take the Spell Phrase, the the Heart and Cross Strap and the Hooves just to push really big, and then just kind of mix and match around there as you want. But like I said, I think the equipment actually makes a lot of sense in the 11 slots. Of course, that last slot goes to that valuable Talishar. So let's check out the main deck and see how this whole thing comes together. All right, so now that we look at the layout of the deck here, I freaking love building in the commoner format with Levia actually, because I think she has so much of her strength in her commons just to begin with. It's just fantastic that you get to keep combos such as like the Dread Screamer, Graveling Growl, or the Hungering Slaughter Beast plus Unworldly. These just feel fantastic. And as you start to put a Levia commoner deck together, you realize that her overstatedness really, really starts to matter in this format when decks just aren't able to be as tuned aggressively as they want to be. Levia actually still can keep up that pace and feel like a really, really strong deck in the format, mostly because, yeah, her overstatted stuff just kind of sits in that common slot. So in building that kind of idea, that's what I went with this deck. We want to push her overstatted cards to the best of their ability in this format. We also want to make use of these 3-card hands that were so successful in the Blitz format because they actually translate over really, really well. So that was the idea in building this deck, and there's some cheekiness. So kind of we're going to break it down into these 3 parts where you've got the core go-again combos, the tall combos, and then some cheekiness. So first things first, we've got the Dread Screamer Graveling, as I mentioned. This combo being in common is so, so strong. It's Levia's bread and butter. It's one of the main reasons to play Blood Debt at all is to get the payoff with Graveling Growl, and we get that in this commoner format. So we're running the red and yellows of the Graveling, and then the red and blues of the Dread Screamer. You could also run the yellow Dread Screamers if you really want. I didn't find that I really wanted all too many yellows. I just wanted those slots to always be the maximum aggression or best for pitch, because yellow still just doesn't really work with how Levia's pitch curve works. So we've got that combo in the deck. Then we've also got these strong just 2-card hands in the Deadwood Rumbler Reds. Of course, we're running the blues anyway because they're blue 6. But the Deadwood Rumbler Reds do a lot of work in this format. Just being a 2-card hand for 8 is really, really strong. I mean, imagine how much value we get off of like Endless Maw and Swing Big in Levia normally. Well, yeah, we're going to have to bump it down to Deadwood, which doesn't block, but still in this format, it is really, really incredible to be able to swing for that amount. On top of that, there's actually not that many non-blocks in the deck right now. If we just kind of look at that overall, these are the only non-blocks. So we're cutting stuff like Doomsday, the Eye of Ophidia, the Art of Wars, those things that just don't fit in anyway because it's commoner. So only 4 non-blocks is really, really not a big liability. So these cards are great in here. Then we've got the buff package, and the buff package has these 3-card hands that really want to work for it, but the beauty of it is that these cards in Arsenal, like when you have the advantage, or even in hand rather, when you have the advantage and you're pushing over your opponent, and you drop these hands, even if you're lacking go again, and you don't have Scabskins to try to just like push like for some hopefully lucky roll, right? These tall cards let you actually use your hand for the max amount of damage all the time. So you don't have to use them in conjunction with their specific combos, but they are really, really good in their own right. So with that, we've got Come to Fight, which is just very vanilla. It's a common. It blocks 3 and gives your next attack +3 for just 1 cost. So it's nothing too crazy, but just the ability to buff stuff on curve. Also, the fact that it goes to grave, just a really strong reason to run this card. Of course, it is just completely overshadowed by its counterparts here, an Unworldly Bellow and Awakening Bellow. Running the reds, of course, because it's +4, and then the blues, just because it's still a block 3, turns off Blood Debt, and is above rate. The Awakening Bellow is +3 Intim, +1 Intim on the blue. Still fantastic card, but these all get paired really well together then with the Pack Hunts and the Hungering Slaughter Beast in particular, because these are your 2-cost attacks that just fit really well in conjunction with these in a blue, right? So the Pack Hunts combined with any of these are really good, but the perfect combination would be like with an Awakening Bellow coming in for 9 double dominate, or double Intim rather. You're pushing damage with that kind of play for sure. Hungering Slaughter Beast coming in for like 7 +4, coming in for 11. These are just really, really strong rates. And of course, they all block 3. So there's a lot of flexibility in that. These are the cards you can block with if you really want. You can build for the arsenal if you really want. But I feel like this is where the core of the deck really comes together. Then we've got some of our like filler stuff in the blue Wrecker Romp. We're going to take because it's a blue 6, block 3, and then Lead the Charge. I feel like this one's more of a flex slot. I was running Whispers of the Oracle for a bit, but Whispers just didn't really do anything with the opt effect because you're not really drawing anything too relevant other than like with the Deadwood, since there's no Blood Rush to dig for or anything like that. So even though these are a 2-block, the ability to flip them with a large hand to gain that extra action point can be pretty huge. So I like them in this slot. But this would be the flex slot. If you're safer going down less blues, I mean, that's where you can throw in the Yellow Dread Screamer or whatever you want. So then we've got the cheeky part of the deck here, and I really, really like this part because we're always building in Levia around like these combos, but there's actually another combo that is really, really, really great, especially that you can pull off in Commoner, and that is the Boneyard Marauder with a blue to raise your reflex and then come in with Ghostly Visit out of your Banished Zone. This is a great, really strong 3-card hand with Boneyard, blue, Razor, right, come in with Ghostly. That's just really worth building around in its own regard. But then the Razor has other use cases as well, in that it can hit the Graveling Growls if you're going for a really wide turn. It can also hit the Ghostlies if you lead with Ghostly and know your opponent's on like a non-blocking strategy. You can really punish them with that boom, hit the Ghostly with Razor and go wider off your turn that way. Or even on the early turns, if you're blocking heavily, you can turn in 1 blue and a Razor into hitting Talishar in for 7. So that's really strong in Razor here. I quite like it for this deck, but that is kind of the main combo you're chasing in Boneyard, Razor, Ghostly. So just to talk about the card specifically, Ghostly Visit's always been a great card for Levia in that it combos with Dread Screamer, but in this version, in Commoner, the recursion piece in this common rarity is just so good for the deck. You do lose out on like Howl from Beyond, but just to have a bit of that recursion in the deck still feels really, really great for how Levia wants to play. And it blocks 3, right? So just fantastic in this slot. Already talked about the Razor. Then Boneyard Marauder. Boneyard Marauder is normally one of my favorite cards in Levia, but you actually lose some value in it here in that you don't have Blood Rush. So putting this in Arsenal to then go off with Blood Rush and a blue Claw into Boneyard just doesn't happen, right? But still the 1 cost for 6 has its value in that it just kind of slots into so many really good plays. Being able to kind of act as like a Graveling Growl after Dread Screamer if your graveyard's full enough. The Razor Reflex Ghostly play I already mentioned, or even Boneyard plus like double buff off a blue on like a 4-card hand comes in for really tall numbers. So that's the deck here. It's actually like, I really love basically every card in the list except the Lead the Charge, a bit of a flex. And it's been a lot of fun to play. I haven't really put in many games, just played like 3 games, honestly. But I'm really liking where Levia stands because she has these damage numbers that are just so overstated in her common slots that is really overwhelming in a game of Commoner where your opponents normally don't have that much armor. So you get to become very overwhelming. You strip their hands. You push so much damage. You have some cheekiness still in the Razor Reflex attack reactions. And you've got Intimidate to interact with them. You've got just ways to go really tall, ways to go really wide. I think she can really do it all. It's a very toolboxy, fun build. And like I said, I really, really just love that it's a Talishar build of all things. That to me makes this deck just worth running in the first place, because you're always going to confuse your opponents when you whip out all these crazy builds that you're picking up from my channel here. So with that, that was just a super quick Commoner Levia deck tech, but I wanted to put it out there because it's a great new format. A lot of people having fun with it before the Pro Tour, before the ban list, all these crazy things. So I hope you all enjoyed, and if you are going to be in Pittsburgh, I will see you there. Have a good one.